Hello. I know. 3 articles from The Guardian, comment sections. The first one is about Costa Coffee, which for most people, I've actually been in one, because for years I hadn't been into one of these. The other thing, the more famous coffee shop thing. So on my way, on a drive down through the country, in a service station, I stopped into a Costa and bought myself a hot cocoa. And it was very expensive. It was all right. It was quite tasty, but it wasn't hot enough. And I thought, why do people spend money on these things? Starbucks is the other thing. Anyway, it looks like the actual chain, Costa, isn't doing that well. So I'll read a couple of these and see if I can make something of it, or if you can make something of it. So this is the top thumbed up comment, and we'll have a couple of replies. Speaking for the unemployed. Yeah, it was something to do with Costa and the unemployed. I don't know quite what it was, because I don't read the articles, I only read the comments. Speaking for the unemployed, we can't afford to go into Costa. They are too expensive. A coffee and biscuit sets you back a £5, so £5 for coffee and biscuits. Okay, now I'm tight. I wouldn't go to I went just for the experience. But why anybody wants to go to a coffee shop and pay a £5 for coffee and biscuits, it beats me. But we read on. It's slightly ironic that the idea of coffee shops is to create a community feel, and yet you're removed from said society if you don't earn a fortune. When a coffee shop models itself on a club lounge, there's a major problem. And I suppose, thinking of this Costa thing, if you thought of it as a club lounge, I suppose that was basically the idea. It was meant to be upmarket, but if you're going to spend a £5 for coffee and biscuits, then you want something a bit upmarket. So it has to be upmarket, doesn't it? You can't have a slummy thing and charge a lot of money. Anyway, but I see what they mean. We'll read on. Whilst I don't want the unemployed living a totally joyless existence, I'd rather not be funding those out of work to £2 to £3 coffees on a regular basis. It's the sort of luxury everyone cuts back on when times are tough, which possibly explains their sales figures. In other words, Costa's sales figures are down because times are tough. But it seems reasonable that this commenter doesn't think the unemployed should be spending £2 or £3 on a coffee on a regular basis in a place like Costa. Last comment on this run, and I'll see if it flicks anything in me head. Should we go closer to me? Nice, eh? Hello. Well, when a person is not working either because they can't find a job or sick, going for a coffee, getting out of the house, maybe meeting a few people, can be a lifeline for sanity. Would you really deny those few pounds a day and make those who go for a coffee feel guilty? Really? Ever heard of keeping up morale while times are tough? The theme that we've got in these 3 articles is a difference between conservative people, right-wing people, and left-wing people of a liberal bent. And what we've got here basically is he said it very nicely, I'm saying it's a he, said, look, I don't want to be paying unemployed people enough money that they can go and spend £2 to £3 on a coffee on a regular basis. And let's say the last commenter was from a nice left-wing liberal type sort of person that says, Well, I think I would like to pay them that because it'll be better for their sanity and better for society in general. Obviously, what we're going to come down to in the end is who is going to be paying the £2 or £3 to the unemployed person, so then they can go to Costa and get their sanity through a coffee. This one's a bit silly, but I put it in because it was of the theme. I don't know what the Guardian again was quite on about, but this is a quote from the article that somebody's going to then comment on. For instance, the richest 10% spend more on wine per week, £9.40, than the poorest 10% spent on water, £7.30. This is the comment. Assuming water costs are fairly similar, whoever you are, which is about right, drinking, washing, daily shower, etc., surely anyone who buys a moderate quality bottle of wine in a week spends more on wine, which seems right. If that's the price that average on water is £7.30, and if an average bottle of wine is £7.30, then if you have an average bottle of wine, it's equivalent to what you spend on, anybody spends on water. Anyway, we'll move on. There are only 3 of these, and they don't really add up, but I've put them in anyway. You're right, the ONS report, that's the Office of National Statistics. The average spent on alcohol is £7.80. I guess the Guardian had to dig really hard to be able to manipulate this non-story into rich versus poor argument. Just to note, in case people haven't been knowing, that the Guardian is one of these left-wing liberal newspapers. And then the last comment here is, they're digging really hard. The quote from the article is, the survey found that the richest 10% devote twice as much of their weekly shop, £17.50, on alcoholic drinks, tobacco and narcotics as the poorest. So the richest spend £17.50 on alcoholic drinks, tobacco and narcotics, where the poorest, here is now the comment on that, so the poorest spend £8.75 a week on alcohol, tobacco and narcotics, because that's half what the rich number is, £17.50. So the poorest spend £8.75 a week on alcohol, tobacco and narcotics, which is more than they spend on water. This headline is basically, rich people buy more expensive booze, which is only to be expected, isn't it, really? But there, again, a left-wing nice person would say, well, surely the poor should be allowed to spend at least £8.75 a week on alcohol, tobacco and narcotics. Forget the narcotics, that just perverts the alcohol and tobacco and things like that. They should be able to spend £8.75 on alcohol and tobacco because that keeps them sane, because they've got a hard life. Are you getting the theme? And somebody will come and say, well, if they're working for it, all right, but I don't want to pay them the £8.75 that they're going to spend on alcohol and tobacco to keep them sane. Somebody's got to earn the money to pay them. Theme. What was this last one? Hope it's good to make it make sense. Oh, crumbs, yeah. This one's about having children. So I've just got 2 comments here to continue the theme, if it does. Why should hard-pressed taxpayers fund people who can't or won't work to have 5, 6 or 7 children, often with different fathers? So it's not a good comment, is it? Because it doesn't bring any facts to the table. It just brings to the table. Why should I pay this slut to have lots of kids when she's not going to pay any of it? There is a backwards and forwards in all the comments I'll just go to the next comment, which will sum up something. As Gabby says, Gabby Hintcliffe or something, she wrote the article. Because 50% of female graduates don't have any, as in 50% of female graduates from college, university, who are going to go on and make more money for themselves, don't actually have any children. Half of them don't. Someone's got to produce your future workers. Now, this, to my mind, is a bit of left-wing liberal justification of, oh, it's their human right to be able to do what they do. You can't interfere with things like this. Someone's got to produce the future workers, and we've got to link back to what we were talking about, UBI or Universal Job Guarantee, USG, where we're going to be struggling to find jobs for people because the robots are going to do them. Anyway, someone's got to produce your future workers. Your mistake is to fall for the neocon guff of children as a lifestyle choice. That's the third line. Your mistake is to fall for the neocon guff that children are a lifestyle choice. And then I think, if I remember rightly, she stabs herself in the head with the last line. They're not. The rich get rich and the poor have children. And then it just gets all dreadfully confusing. But I think what we've got from this all is that nice people want other people to have nice things as well and to live nice lives. Most of these nice people are what we would call middle class people. The experience that we've had from the last 30 years is that if you ask these middle class people to pay more taxes, they will kick up all sorts of shit. In other words, they don't put their money where their mouth is. The best they come up with is the money should be made available for all these unfortunate people. Who's going to pay for it? The rich are going to pay for it. In other words, we're not going to pay for it. Somebody else is going to pay for it. And there it is.